My name is Nora Whitfield, and I've built my entire career on keeping numbers steady when everything else falls apart. Tonight, I was sitting in my parents' living room, watching my family pretend to understand what I do for a living. Rachel, my daughter and business partner, stood beside me, holding the signed Henderson contract, her first $1 million deal. I could feel her pride, bright and fragile, and I should have known it wouldn't survive this room. Calvin's daughter, Chloe, leaned closer to the fireplace, eyes glinting. "Daddy says people like you just get lucky," she said. And before I could speak, the paper caught the flame. The sound was soft. Cruel. Phenol. Calvin laughed from the kitchen. "Relax. Nora, print another one. It's not like your little firm runs real accounts." Rachel's face went white as the ink curled into ash. "That was the original," she whispered. My father looked up from his paper. Unimpressed. "You shouldn't bring work to family dinners," he muttered. My mother nodded without meeting my eyes. Calvin smirked. "If you were really closing $1 million deals, you'd have something nicer than that old Subaru." Laura's voice slid in smooth and poisonous. "Exactly. It's hard to believe all these big numbers when you can't even upgrade your car." I felt Rachel's breath catch beside me. Quiet and breaking. I didn't argue. I simply stared at the fire and said, "That piece of paper represented 3 months of work." Calvin shrugged. "Then work faster next time." I smiled thinly. "Don't worry. I will." His laugh faded when I added, "And you might want to check your credit lines tomorrow." Rachel looked at me. Startled, I didn't look back. I just watched the last corner of the contract disappear into the flame and thought, some fires take more than paper. That night, I didn't raise my voice or break down. I poured myself a glass of water, opened my laptop, and called Alan Green. "Alan, I need you to freeze all credit lines under Calvin and Laura Whitfield," I said evenly. He hesitated for a breath before asking, "Do I need a justification on record?" "You already have one," I replied. "Their accounts were approved under the Whitfield Residential Restructure Fund 18 months ago. And I sign off on every risk adjustment." He exhaled. "Understood. Effective immediately?" I said yes. Then added, "And send me a full mortgage summary before midnight." His tone softened. "Rough night?" I smiled, though he couldn't see it. "Not rough. Just clarifying priorities." Well, when the call ended, I sat still, listening to the faint hum of the refrigerator. Rachel stood by the doorway, eyes red but curious. "Mom, what are you doing?" she asked quietly. "Handling a financial discrepancy," I answered. "That's not anger?" she said. "No," I told her. "This is business. Anger burns out fast. Balance sheets don't." She watched me type a few final notes, then whispered, "They won't see it coming." I closed the screen and met her eyes. They saw a contract burn. "Rachel, they just never imagined how much paper I hold on theirs." Her silence said she understood. For the first time that evening, her shoulders relaxed, not out of comfort, but out of recognition. As I turned off the light, I caught our reflections in the dark window, hers young and shaken, mine calm and sharpened by purpose. "You'll learn," I said softly, more to myself than to her. "Sometimes justice looks like paperwork." Outside, the snow had started to fall. Quiet and absolute. The kind that covers everything but forgets nothing. By morning, my phone was already ringing. Calvin's voice came first. Sharp and ragged. "What the hell did you do? Our accounts are frozen." "Laura's card got declined at the grocery store," I said evenly. "You might want to ask your bank instead of me." He hissed. Don't play dumb. You did something. I let a pause settle before answering. Banks respond to instability. Calvin. Maybe they saw what I've seen for years. One? Laura's voice echoed in the background. Furious and panicked. Tell her she can't humiliate us like this. Calvin tried to sound in control. This is about last night. Isn't it? You're punishing a kid, I said. No. I'm correcting a balance sheet. And the numbers aren't in your favor. He shouted something about calling lawyers. But I had already ended the call. The silence that followed felt cleaner than his noise. Minutes later, my father called. His tone clipped. Nora, your brother's in a mess. You need to fix this. We don't drag family through the mud. I replied. Then maybe family shouldn't set the fire. He sighed heavily. You're overreacting, I said. He laughed while Rachel's work turned to ash. If that's not cause for reaction, maybe you've forgotten what respect costs. His silence said more than defense ever could. At noon, Calvin's voice trembled when he called again. We got a notice from the mortgage company. They're accelerating the loan. They want the full balance in 30 days. I asked, Are you current on payments? He said. Of course. Never missed one. I answered. Then it must be a portfolio decision. Sometimes lenders restructure risk. He cursed under his breath. That's $240,000. We can't pay that. What did you do? I said quietly. You should read your contract more carefully. Some clauses only make sense after you cross a line. When he fell silent, I added, Don't worry. Calvin, I told you last night this isn't anger. It's business. Yes. By the next evening, my parents' house was full again. Calvin stood in the center of the living room, holding the mortgage notice like a weapon. You've gone too far, he said. You think you can ruin my credit? Take my house. And call it business? I answered. I don't think it. I know it. Laura's eyes were red, her voice trembling. You're really doing this to your own brother? I said. You burned my daughter's work and laughed. This is me reminding you that laughter doesn't pay off debt. Oh. My father's voice cut through the tension. Nora, sit down and talk like a human being. Family doesn't treat family like clients. I looked at him and said, Then maybe family shouldn't behave like competitors. Calvin barked. Don't twist this. We didn't destroy your life. I replied. No. Just Rachel's contract. Her confidence, and the respect we thought existed in this house. My mother whispered. It was an accident. I shook my head. Accidents don't come with applause. Mother, he enjoyed it, too. Calvin slammed the paper onto the coffee table. Fine. You want honesty? I don't believe you ever had that deal. You needed proof of success. So you staged this drama, I said. And yet, here you are begging the woman you called a fraud to save your house. He blinked hard, his anger flickering into fear. You wouldn't dare foreclose, I said quietly. You should read the letter again. It's addressed from Whitfield Residential Holdings. That's my company. Silence folded over the room like smoke. Laura whispered. You own our mortgage? I nodded once. Acquired through a portfolio last year. I didn't even notice your name until now. My father rose. Voice cracking. This ends now. You can't weaponize money against blood. I said. I'm not weaponizing anything. I'm exercising ownership, something this family keeps mistaking for arrogance. Calvin's face went pale. We've been paying you every month, I answered. Then I suggest you keep doing that. Because if you stop, I'll treat you the same as any other defaulting borrower. Choose. Rachel's silence hung heavy behind me. My mother finally whispered, This isn't who we are. I looked at her and said, "Maybe it's exactly who we are, people who ignore worth until it costs them something." Calvin swallowed hard, his pride stripped down to panic. "Please. Nora, don't take my home," I said. "I'm not taking anything." "Calvin, you burned what was mine. I'm just making sure you understand the value of what's yours." Day. The next morning, Calvin called again, his voice raw with fury. "You can't do this. Nora, you're abusing power. And I'll get a lawyer," I said. "Then you'll need one who understands loan acceleration clauses." He spat. "You think you're untouchable because you own a few signatures?" I replied. "No. Calvin, I'm untouchable because I read the fine print before I sign it." "Oka." Laura's voice cut in from the background, shaking with anger. "You've humiliated us. Everyone in the neighborhood will know," I said. "They already know what kind of man mocks his sister for working." "This just completes the picture," Calvin snapped. "You're vindictive. You could end this right now," I said. "I could. But for once, I'm letting consequences work without my interference." His breath came harsh, disbelief turning into something close to fear. Later that afternoon, Alan called, his tone measured. "They're trying to challenge the freeze order," he said. I asked, "Any chance they'll win?" He replied, "None. Everything's airtight." I thanked him, and he paused. "You sure you want to keep pushing this?" I said. "I'm not pushing anything. I'm just letting gravity do what it does." When I hung up, my phone buzzed again. Another message from my mother, asking if I'd lost my mind. Her words were short and cold. "You're destroying the family." I answered. "No, I'm exposing it." She wrote back, "Your father says this isn't how we handle things." I typed, "Then maybe that's why things never got handled." After that, I sent one final message to Calvin. "You still have options." I wrote, "Read the letter again before you talk about what I can't do." His reply came a minute later, 4 words dripping with desperation. "You've gone too far." I didn't answer. Some lessons only sink in when the echo is all that's left. 2 days later, Calvin and Laura came to my office, their faces drawn tight with exhaustion. Calvin started first, his voice stripped of its usual bravado. "We can't lose the house." "Nora, tell us what you want," I said. "You're asking for terms, not mercy." "There's a difference." Laura gripped her purse. "We'll agree to whatever you say. Just give us a way out." I nodded toward the envelope on the table. "Everything you need is in there." 1. Calvin opened it, eyes scanning each page. "A written apology to Rachel? You're serious?" I said. "Completely. She deserves acknowledgement for what you took from her," Laura murmured. "A repayment for lost commission? That's 6 figures," I replied. "Then you understand the scale of what you mocked." Calvin's jaw tightened. "And financial counseling sessions? We're not children," I said. "No. But you raised one who thought destroying contracts was a joke." He leaned forward. "You could ruin us if we refuse." I said, "I don't have to. You'd do that yourselves. These terms let you stay in your home and rebuild your credibility." Laura whispered. "And if we sign?" I said. "Then the loan remains active under revised conditions. No foreclosure. No credit damage." Calvin's voice dropped to a whisper. "And if I don't?" I answered. "Then I'll proceed as any lender would through collection and court filings." He looked at me for a long moment. "You're asking me to crawl?" I said. "No. I'm asking you to stand up straight for once. You've spent years bending around pride." Laura turned to him, her tone pleading. "Let's just do it." "Calvin, please." He hesitated, then picked up the pen. You'll get your apology, your payment, your conditions. I'll even call Henderson myself. I met his eyes. You'll call them today. His voice faltered. What if they won't listen? I said. Then you'll make them listen. You told everyone my business was small. Prove you understand what big looks like. When he signed, his hand shook, but his words didn't. We'll do this your way. I gathered the papers and said quietly, it was never my way. Calvin, it was just the only honest way left. As they left, the air felt lighter, not from forgiveness, but from the weight finally landing where it belonged. A week later, Calvin called, his voice steadier but thinner than before. I spoke with Henderson this morning, he said. They agreed to meet Rachel for a new consulting project. 600,000. Different scope, but still her deal. I replied, good. You finally learned how to make a call worth answering. He exhaled. Tired. I told them she's the best in the business. I meant it. I said, you should. She earned that long before your apology. Eyes. He hesitated. I was wrong. Nora. About everything. About you. About her. I thought success meant winning the argument. I said, success means surviving the noise. You never noticed because you were too busy making it. His voice cracked. Are we okay now? I paused before answering. We're in progress. Keep your promises. Respect has to be paid in installments too. For the first time. He didn't argue. I will. That afternoon, my father came to my office, holding a sealed envelope. This is from Calvin, he said. The reimbursement check and the apology letters. He wanted me to deliver them personally. I nodded and asked, did he sign them? Or did Laura? My father's eyes softened. Both. And your mother wants to talk. She says she was wrong to stay silent. I said quietly, silence isn't neutral. Dad. It takes a side. He looked down. Then maybe it's time we start standing on the right one. It's later. Rachel walked in, holding her tablet. Henderson sent the contract, she said. They want to work with us again. I told her. Frame that letter from Calvin and keep it near your desk. Not as a trophy, just as proof that people can change when they're forced to see value. She smiled faintly. Does that mean it's over? I said. No. It means it's balanced. When she left, I looked out the window and thought of the fire that had started all this. Some flames destroy, others forge. This one had done both. And from it, respect finally had a name. Rachel hung the apology letter in her office, framed in simple black. She looked at it once and said, it's not about winning. Is it? I told her. No. It's about remembering what happens when people confuse pride with worth. She nodded and turned back to her screen. Henderson confirmed the start date, she said. And I answered, then let's make sure the next contract ends better than the last one began. A week later, my father called just to ask how work was going. It was the first time in years the question sounded like interest instead of judgment. My mother spoke quietly in the background, saying she was proud of Rachel. I said, you should tell her that yourself. And he replied, she just did. For a moment, the silence felt different, lighter, like something broken being set down gently. That evening, Rachel stopped by my desk and said, are you really okay now? I smiled. I was okay the moment they saw us clearly, she said. Even after everything, I told her. Especially after everything. Justice doesn't roar, it just settles. When she left, the office felt steady again. Quiet but alive. balance restored, and peace earned. Not granted. Thank you for watching Nora's story. A reminder that silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. If you've ever been underestimated, let this be your proof that dignity can be louder than revenge. Share this story with someone who's fought quietly and won. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.